Hello everyone and welcome to our presentation. We are a group of master's degree students at INSEEC, France, and we are going to talk to you today about Mexican drug cartels.
The Mexican Drug Organization, also known as the Transaction Criminal Organization, dominate the production and distribution of methamphetamine, heroin, marijuana, and cocaine across the world, most especially to the United States of America. United States of America sources 90% of its cocaine from the Mexico. The drug trafficking business serves as a lucrative business for the Mexico drug cartel because it generates them an estimated annual revenue between the range of 35 billion US dollars to 45 billion US dollars with a profit margin of 80%. Mexican drug cartel have grown and geographically spread its operation in all parts of Mexico. According to the United States Drug Enforcement Administration, the highest significant drug cartel that pose the highest problem, the highest threats to the United States of America are the Sinaloa cartel, the Jalisco New Generation cartel, the Beltran Leyva Organization cartel, the Los Zetas cartel, the Guerreros Unidos cartel, the Gulf cartel, the Juarez cartel, which serve as a long-standing rival of Sinaloa cartel, and the La Familia Michoacana cartel and the Los Rojos cartel. All these cartels have geographically spread their operation in both the western part of Mexico and the southern part of Mexico and the central part of Mexico. Like for example, for that of the Sinaloa cartel is the most influential drug trafficking group in Mexico, which have strongholds in nearly half of Mexico state, and the Juarez cartel, which is the long-standing rival of the Sinaloa cartel, has a stronghold in the north-central part of Mexico across the border from the New Mexico and Texas.
I'm going to talk about the organization of the Mexican drug cartels. The cartels that control the region's drug trade use business models that are surprisingly similar to those of big box stores and franchises. For instance, they have exclusive relationships with their suppliers, who are the farmers who grow the coca plants, that allow the cartels to keep the price of cocaine stable even when crop production is disrupted. The way they organize is that they go to local areas and they find out who the local criminals are. It's usually people who do the drug dealing and extortion and all the other kinds of crime. The cartels offer them a crime and say, okay, you can use our brand, you can call yourself one of us. And they gave them baseball caps with embroidered logos, and they gave them t-shirts with their logos on. And they train them in how to use weapons sometimes. And in return, the local criminals give the cartels a share of all the money that they get from their criminal activity. In other words, it's exactly like the kind of franchising model that many other well-known companies use. One of the most prominent and visible characteristics of a Mexican drug cartel organization is the existence of a highly formal hierarchy that is distinguished by clearly defined levels of authority and responsibilities. They have the uncanny ability to informally communicate responsibilities and operating procedures. They don't use written rules or guidelines like legitimate corporations. Instead, instructions are communicated orally and often only implied. Organizational members learn the rules quickly, or else they're dealt with violently.
Alexis, I will take you all around all the different criminal activities within the Mexican cartels, starting by kidnapping, extortion, weapon smuggling, drug trafficking, human trafficking, political corruption, and fraud. Drug trafficking for the year of 2022, it represents between 19 and 29 billion dollars for the year of 2022. It's just massive. And those cartels are using those criminal activities not just within the Mexican border, but they are spreading those activities outside Mexico, meaning in United States and all the South America's countries, and even in Europe now. Why? By distributing drugs, by using all the activities they're doing in Mexico and doing exactly the same in all the other countries. Why? Because the need of money. It's kind of easy money, and money causes money. Now, to ensure that all those criminal activities can be done and they can bring money, all the Mexican cartels are using a lot of corruption within the political life of Mexico. Why? Because if they can ensure that the right person is at the right place, they can do all the criminal activities freely. simple. However, those corruptions are impacting not just Mexican citizens, but all the other countries neighbors to Mexico too, because those countries are not talking to politicians, but to cartels.
We are moving on to the impact of the Mexican drug cartels. Mexican drug cartels have affected the Mexican economy in both positive and negative ways. On the positive side, there is the building of the legitimate businesses throughout Mexico using the profits made of criminal activities. As these drug traffickers are compliant taxpayers and their employers are registered in the national payroll tax, the government can only benefit from it. It helps boost the economy, reduce poverty, and increase employment rate. An example of the legitimate owned cartel businesses are the well-known resorts Cancun, Cabo San Lucas, Cozumel. These resorts are the safest places in Mexico that someone can be. Another thing worth mentioning is the tight and close relationship between the cartels and the local communities. In the poor neighborhoods of Mexico, the cartels have a massive reach. They provide work for people, they build churches, roads, schools, they help people with the immigration process, and even give Christmas presents to their kids. They are seen as the good guys in the eyes of many locals. Despite the positive effects, there is no doubt that drug cartels promote crime and danger, which cause people to immigrate in other countries, looking for a better life. There is a low interest in investing in the country, and it becomes more and more difficult for the government to provide the public with basic goods and services. Also, keeping violent crime under control is very expensive, because the taxpayers must cover the large number of police personnel, operations, courts, prisons, jails. One of the most alarming aspects of these criminal organizations is the extreme violence they promote. Killing, decapitation, torture is one of the few examples of the grotesque practices that are used.
I'm Changmei. I will talk about how the US tried to stop drugs from Mexico. In 2020, according to the National Institute on Drug Abuse, about 92,000 Americans died of drug abuse. So the government adopted two ways to attack these associations. The first, law enforcement joins forces to attack Mexican drug cartels and associates. The DEA and its law enforcement counterparts have mobilized to increase pressure on these organizations at every level. They had made lots of arrests and seized drugs, weapons, US currency, and other assets. The DEA and other departments attacked these organizations throughout the US and also work with their partners in Latin America. The second way is financial sanction. The Treasury Department sanctioned a group of people and companies connected to Mexico's powerful drug cartels, including a sibling involved in family-run Valenzuela drug trafficking organization. They freeze all their property and other interests in the US and forbidden Americans and companies from doing business with them. This cartel, the owner of this cartel were arrested in 2020 and 2021 because their organization was importing the drug from Mexico and the United States.
We'll talk about the response and reaction of Mexican government. So what measure has the Mexican government taken to stem the drug trade? So different Mexico government has imposed many different strategies to stop the cartels from their illicit drug trade. Mexican authorities have been waging a deadly battle against drug cartels for more than a decade now, but with limited success. Thousands of Mexicans, including politicians, students and journalists, die in the conflict every year, and the country has seen more than 360,000 homicides since 2006. when the government declared wars on the cartels. Mexican government's response to drug cartels has been a combination of military force and social and economic reforms. The key measures include, firstly, the deployment of military and federal police to combat cartels and reduce violence. Secondly, a new cooperation with United States law enforcement to dismantle transnational drug trafficking organizations. Thirdly, implementation of social programs aimed at reducing poverty and addressing the root causes of drug trafficking. Also, corruption investigations and crackdown on government officials involved in aiding cartels. And to finish, reform of the justice system to improve the prosecution of drug-related crimes and increase convictions. However, despite these efforts, drug-related violence and cartel activity remains a major challenge for Mexico and continues to be a source of concern for the Mexican government.